My name is Scarlett, and I live in Austin, Texas. I'm 28 years old, and I work as a project manager for a growing tech company. It's a job I love, not just because it challenges me, but also because it gives me the financial independence I've worked hard to achieve. My life looks good on paper: a stable career, a nice home, and a husband, Daniel, who I thought was my partner in every sense of the word. But life has a way of testing the foundations you think are solid, and my story is proof of that. From the moment I married Daniel, his sister, Karen, made it clear that she didn't like me. She was the kind of person who saw someone else's success as a threat, and the fact that I earned more than she did was something she couldn't let go of. We all lived together under one roof, something I agreed to because Daniel insisted Karen needed help after her divorce. I wanted to be supportive, but I quickly realized I wasn't just sharing a home. I was stepping into a battlefield. Karen had a way of making me feel small, like I didn't belong in my own house. She'd make snide comments about my job, accusing me of neglecting my duties as a wife because I didn't spend all my time cooking and cleaning. It didn't matter that I contributed equally to the household, if not more, both financially and otherwise. To her, I was a threat, and she found ways to remind me of it every chance she got. It wasn't just words. Karen treated me like her personal maid. She'd leave messes everywhere and then look at me with a smug smile, as if daring me to clean up after her. Daniel would brush it off, saying, "That's just how she is. Don't take it personally." But how could I not? Over time, it became clear that my feelings didn't matter, not to Karen, and not to Daniel. For a while, I told myself I could handle it. I was strong, wasn't I? I had faced challenges before, but living under the same roof as Karen, with her constant criticism and manipulations, wore me down. And what hurt the most was Daniel's silence. When I needed him to stand up for me, he'd shrug or, worse, side with Karen. I kept telling myself things would get better. They didn't. It all came to a head on a day I'll never forget. Karen's birthday. She had invited all her friends and a few family members over for a party at our house. I had spent the morning helping set up, despite knowing she'd never acknowledge my efforts. It wasn't that I wanted her gratitude. I just wanted to avoid drama. I had learned by then that keeping the peace often meant swallowing my pride. The party was in full swing, and everyone seemed to be enjoying themselves. Karen, as usual, was in her element, laughing loudly, commanding everyone's attention, and making sure the spotlight stayed on her. I was trying to stay in the background, chatting politely with a few guests and refilling drinks when needed. It wasn't my idea of a relaxing Saturday, but I figured if I could just get through the evening, it would be over. Then it happened. After everyone finished eating, Karen stood in the middle of the room and clapped her hands to get everyone's attention. "All right, time to clean up," she announced, her eyes locking onto mine with that familiar smirk. "Scarlett, why don't you take care of the dishes?" For a moment, I froze. Her tone wasn't a request, it was an order. She didn't ask anyone else to help, not even Daniel. All eyes were on me, and I could feel the heat rising in my face. Part of me wanted to stand my ground, but I hesitated, not wanting to cause a scene in front of so many people. I looked over at Daniel, silently pleading for his support, but he just sat there, avoiding my gaze. When I didn't move right away, Karen's voice came again, louder this time. "Come on, Scarlett. We can't just leave the dishes piling up, can we?" She laughed, and a few of her friends chuckled along with her. I swallowed hard, my pride warring with my need to keep the peace. Reluctantly, I stood up and headed toward the kitchen. But before I could get far, Karen added, "Make sure you scrub them properly. You know how picky I am about my plates." Her friends laughed again, and I felt the sting of humiliation. It wasn't just the task. It was the way she made it a public spectacle, a way to remind everyone, including me, of my supposed place in her world. As I reached the sink, Daniel followed me into the kitchen. For a brief moment, I thought he was coming to check on me, maybe to offer an apology or some kind of support. But instead, he grabbed my arm firmly, spinning me around to face him. "Don't ruin my sister's birthday," he hissed under his breath. His voice was sharp, his grip tight enough to make me wince. "Just do what she asked and stay out of sight. Don't show your face to our guests again tonight." I stared at him stunned. My own husband, the man who was supposed to have my back, was siding with Karen. He didn't just fail to defend me, he actively joined in my humiliation. I could barely see straight as I turned back to the sink, my hands shaking as I started scrubbing the dishes. Tears blurred my vision, but I bit my lip and kept going, determined not to let anyone see me cry. I could hear the laughter and chatter from the living room, the sounds of people enjoying themselves while I stood there, reduced to a maid in my own home. In that moment, something inside me broke. It wasn't just about the dishes or the party, it was about the realization that this wasn't an isolated incident. This was my life now. Karen's hostility, Daniel's indifference, the constant erosion of my self-worth. It wasn't going to change. That night, after everyone had left and the house was quiet, I packed a bag. I didn't know exactly where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stay. I left a note on the kitchen counter, a short message that said everything I needed to say. I deserve better than this. My life after leaving Daniel and Karen's house felt like a whirlwind at first, equal parts terrifying and liberating. I stayed with a close friend for a few months, using that time to process everything I had endured. For years, I had silenced my own needs and tolerated disrespect, telling myself that things would get better. But walking away from that toxic environment was the first real step I had taken toward valuing myself, and I promised never to look back. I threw myself into rebuilding my life. I found a cozy one-bedroom apartment in a quiet neighborhood in Austin, Texas, where I could finally breathe. The walls were bare and the furniture was sparse at first, but it was mine. For the first time in years, I felt free to decorate, cook, and exist in a space without someone hovering over my shoulder, criticizing every little thing I did. My career became my sanctuary. I took on new projects at work, threw myself into learning new skills, and even started mentoring junior employees. The recognition I received for my efforts reminded me that I was more than just someone's wife or sister-in-law. I was capable, independent, and valuable. Still, healing wasn't easy. There were nights when I lay awake, wondering if I had made the right decision. Memories of Daniel's betrayal and Karen's constant taunts would replay in my mind, making me question whether I could have done more to fix things. But then I'd remind myself, I didn't leave because I failed. I left because they refused to treat me with respect. A year passed, and I began to feel like myself again. I had reconnected with old friends, built a support system, and even started dating casually. Life wasn't perfect, but it was mine. Then, out of the blue, Daniel called. It was a rainy Thursday evening, and I had just finished a long day at work. I was curled up on my couch with a glass of wine, watching a movie when my phone buzzed. Seeing Daniel's name on the screen sent a jolt through my chest. For a moment, I considered letting it go to voicemail, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hello," I said cautiously. "Scarlett, it's me," Daniel said, his voice cracking. He sounded desperate. I stayed silent, unsure of what to say. "Please, Scarlett, I need to talk to you. I know I don't deserve your time, but please just hear me out." Against my better judgment, I let him continue. "She kicked me out," he said, his words tumbling over each other. "Karen, she told me I was useless and that I was holding her back. Can you believe that? After everything I did for her, she took over the house, changed the locks, and told me to get lost. I don't have anywhere else to go." My stomach tightened. The irony of the situation wasn't lost on me. Daniel, the man who had stood by while his sister treated me like a servant, was now at the receiving end of her cruelty. "I'm sorry you're going through this," I said, my voice steady. "But I don't see how this involves me." "Scarlett, please," he begged. "I know I messed up. I know I failed you, but I need your help. I've been sleeping in my car for the past 2 nights. I can't do this alone. You were always the strong one, the one who held everything together. I need you, Scarlett. Please forgive me." Hearing those words stirred a mix of emotions in me, anger, pity, and a strange sense of vindication. For years, I had been the one holding everything together, sacrificing my own happiness to keep the peace. And now, here he was, begging for the support he had refused to give me. "Daniel," I said, my voice firm, "do you remember Karen's birthday party? The way you dragged me into the kitchen, told me not to ruin her day, and made me wash the dishes while everyone laughed. Do you remember how you told me to stay out of sight, like I was an embarrassment to you?" He was silent for a moment, and then he stammered, "Scarlett, I wasn't thinking. I was trying to keep the peace. Karen always had a way off." I cut him off. "No, Daniel, you weren't trying to keep the peace. You were trying to keep Karen happy at my expense. You chose her over me, over and over again. And now, when she's done with you, you expect me to save you. I know I was wrong, he said, his voice breaking. I see that now. I see how much I hurt you. Please, Scarlett, I'm begging you. I don't have anyone else. His desperation might have moved me once, but not anymore. I had spent too many nights crying over his betrayal, too many days doubting my own worth because of the way he and Karen treated me. I had built a new life, one that didn't include their toxicity, and I wasn't about to let him drag me back into that mess. I can't help you, Daniel, I said, my voice resolute. You made your choices, and now you have to live with them. Go back to Karen. Wash her dishes. Do whatever it takes to get back into her good graces, because I'm not your solution. Scarlett, please, he started, but I cut him off again. No, Daniel. This conversation is over. Don't call me again. I hung up, my hands trembling. For a moment, I sat there, staring at the phone, wondering if I had been too harsh. But then I remembered everything I had endured, the humiliation, the loneliness, the constant feeling of being undervalued. I had fought too hard for my freedom to let guilt pull me back. That night, I slept more soundly than I had in years. Saying no to Daniel wasn't just about refusing to help him. It was about reclaiming my power, my voice, and my right to prioritize my own well-being. In the weeks that followed, I threw myself even deeper into my passions. I started volunteering at a local shelter, teaching yoga classes to women rebuilding their lives after leaving abusive relationships. Their stories inspired me and reminded me that strength comes in many forms. I also started writing again, something I hadn't done since college. Putting my thoughts and experiences into words was cathartic, and before long, I had the beginnings of a memoir, my story of resilience, growth, and self-discovery. Looking back, I realized that leaving Daniel and Karen wasn't just about escaping a toxic environment. It was about choosing myself, about believing that I deserved more than what they were willing to give. And as I stood on my own 2 feet, surrounded by supportive friends and a life I had built on my own terms, I knew I had made the right choice. I never heard from Daniel again, and I didn't need to. The chapter of my life that included him was over, and I was ready to write a new one filled with love, respect, and the kind of happiness that comes from truly valuing yourself. Walking away from Daniel that final time wasn't just an end, it was a beginning. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of peace, a quiet confidence that I had reclaimed my life. There was no more Karen to undermine me, no more Daniel to ignore me, and no more shrinking myself to fit into spaces where I was never truly valued. My apartment, though modest, became my sanctuary. I started filling it with little things that made me happy, plants in every corner, soft throw blankets, and walls adorned with pictures of places I'd traveled and people who lifted me up. It wasn't about material possessions, it was about creating a space that felt like me. My days were full, but in the best way. I spent mornings at work, tackling challenges that reminded me how capable I was. Afternoons were often dedicated to my fitness routine, boxing classes, yoga, or long walks around the city. Evenings were my favorite. Sometimes I cooked myself a meal while playing my favorite music, dancing around the kitchen like no one was watching. Other times, I'd meet up with friends, laughing over drinks and stories, rediscovering the joy of connection. And then there was the writing. What started as a way to process my pain had grown into something much bigger. Each page of my memoir felt like a victory, a testament to my journey from self-doubt to self-love. The more I wrote, the more I realized how far I had come, not just in leaving Daniel and Karen, but in rediscovering who I was and what I wanted out of life. One sunny Saturday morning, I found myself at the local park, surrounded by a group of women I'd met through my volunteer work. We were there for a fitness boot camp I had organized, a mix of yoga and strength training. As we moved through the exercises, I couldn't help but feel a surge of gratitude. These women, like me, have faced their own battles and come out stronger on the other side. After the class, one of the women approached me, a smile on her face. "You know, Scarlett," she said, "you're really inspiring. The way you've turned your life around, it gives me hope." Her words stayed with me as I walked home that day. Hope. That's what I have found, hope for a future where I didn't just survive but thrived, where I surrounded myself with people who uplifted me, and where I was unapologetically myself. I wouldn't say I was grateful for what Daniel and Karen had put me through, but I was grateful for the lessons I had learned. They had shown me what I didn't want, what I couldn't accept, and what I deserved. And now, standing on the other side of that chapter, I felt stronger than ever. As I curled up on my couch that evening, a cup of tea in hand and the city lights twinkling outside my window, I smiled to myself. This was my life, messy, imperfect, and absolutely beautiful. I had found my freedom, my strength, and my happiness, and I wasn't giving any of it up for anyone.